So, what's on the agenda? What's the first bullet point of the night, of the late night, as is?
Well, I would imagine it would be a proper introduction, names,
Heyo.
places, and what you're doing.
Then I do suggest the more experienced gentleman go first.
Oscar.
I was gonna throw you under the bus, Mulele, but
all right. Then I'll go first. My name is Mulele. I've been living in Japan for about 30 years, and I was born in New York, lived for a time in San Francisco. Now I'm here, and I make comics almost exclusively at this point. Currently, you can find me everywhere as Mulele Redux, Redux, Muleledux. So I guess that'd be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at one point, but I don't do Facebook anymore, and Patreon starting today.
Hey!
Yay!
Yeah.
Very nice.
I guess this is my official launch day.
Congrats.
Thank you. So, anybody else?
All right, Oscar. You want me to go?
I can jump in there, I suppose. I'm Oscar. I used to be from Europe, and I guess I still am from Europe, but I'm living in Tokyo these days. Indeed. Which I have been doing for a while. I make comics, not exclusively yet, but I like making comics. I've been doing so for a while. I am doing that under the name Big Fat Dog Comics. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram. My social media has been dead for a while, but I'm planning to revive it starting with this because I'm hoping for a renewed burst of interest following this the amazing success of this podcast. So I finally actually put some comics online. I usually most of my stuff is out in print. I used to do local conventions here against my better judgment, really. But I'm finally putting some of that stuff online. By lack of current better alternatives, you can find me on Gumroad under Big Fat Dog Comics, and I got some stuff, some old stuff you can find there for $0 or whatever amount of money you want to give. The true price is just giving your email to Gumroad, I suppose. But yeah.
So just real quick, not to step on your toes, Oscar, but
I was running out of stuff already. Go ahead.
Yeah, you've always been very you've always been kind of a recluse when it came to, like, sharing your stuff online. What made you change your mind?
Oh, I had a period where I tried putting more stuff online and actively try to force Twitter to work for me and everything, but I kind of got tired of chasing the likes and the follows very quickly, because I'm not a very social media inclined person by nature, but I guess I just feel that at a certain point you gotta go with the times, and I'm gonna try with a more like make stuff, put it online, and then forget about it approach. because I feel that as an artist, I want the stuff I make to be accessible for whatever audience might be out there.
Mm.
So yeah, because I've been working on stuff a little bit. It's mostly like pages no one reads. That's just sad. So I've been actually lately I've been trying to get into mainstream publishing here in Japan. Currently flirting with Koro Comics, which is like, I like to say it's the Shonen Jump, but for even younger kids. Probably relatively unknown in the West, but it's a very established name here in Japan. I was making good progress until the pandemic hit, and now not hearing. I got like I did a pitch over there. I got an editor that was interested enough in me to be like, all right, let's whip up something cool for a contest that's coming up. But so I've been mostly working on that until the pandemic hit, and it's been radio silence. So I figure I might as well work all angles and get back on social media and everything again, and not put all my eggs in one basket.
That expression, yeah, that's true.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah. My name's Chris Taylor. I go by Sketchfro online. It's been my pen name for quite a few years now. I am also a comic book artist. Let's say I dabbled in manga and various genres. You can find me online just by using Sketchfro. You can look at things like my Twitch, where you can see me doing live drawings, like right now. You can go to Gumroad to download some of my comics. You can support me on Patreon, and I also have Twitter and Instagram to see latest post as well. So I'm very much out there. Much like Oscar and Mulele, like I had a lot of other social medias, but chasing the likes, chasing the fans, I had a falling out at one point, and I kind of backed off for a little bit. Got back into it in order to just kind of have a presence online. Something where someone can reach you, someone can see your stuff is better than having nothing. So yeah, it's out there. Most things are searchable, and again, some days like today, you can actually see me drawing. So
Wait a minute. So am I to understand that you are currently live on Twitch as we're recording this podcast?
I am on Twitch now, but it is not a recording. It's just a live. So the moment I stop, it goes off, and there's no recording of it. It's just if you happen to catch me now, then you see me now drawing, and you can see what I'm drawing right now too.
Interesting.
The man is a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, maybe it's a good idea that if you, for some ungodly reason, have never heard of or seen any of our works, so Mulele, which is Mulele, I guess you're kind of like the head of our little think tank, or our little podcast. Mulele is usually the guy who rouses us up to do all kinds of crazy stuff like this podcast. I would say Mulele's stuff is like big, sprawling, mostly science fiction, either science fiction or samurai adventures with amazing detailed backgrounds. He really likes Akira, and you can really see it in his. I think your longest now is Mindgator, right?
My longest what?
Your longest running comic, or your
bigger story.
My longest delayed.
If you would say like read one of my comics to get an idea of me, which one would it be?
Well, currently, yeah. I mean, I did Mangator for a while. I'm still in the middle of the story, but I'm kind of waiting for a couple of developments to happen before I continue with it. So it's kind of like the thing I don't like to talk about very much is like, okay, yes, I did Mind Gator. Yes, parts 1 and part 2 are out there. Part 3, please wait a little bit longer. I know it's been a year and change, but just hold off.
It's on hiatus. It's really good, but don't read it because that might pressure him to actually finish it.
Yeah, something like that. But really, if I were to say read one of my works, yeah, Mind Gator is fine, but also Yakai. Yakai was the last thing I did on Kickstarter. But I mean, currently, if you go to my my Twitter, well, if you go to my Twitter, you get a lot of semi-left leaning political stuff as well. But I can't help but retweet some of this shit that I see because it's just too awful in the States right now. But
oh, I know how you feel.
Yeah, don't get me started. But anyway, if you go to my Instagram, there's no politics, no nothing, just the artwork, and it's just focused on what I'm working on at the moment. I will be scaling that back a little bit because I want to save a little bit for Patreon, right?
Yeah.
But I'm right now kind of putting artwork up once every day or two. Probably going to turn into every 2 or 3 days. I'll be putting up artwork to promote the Patreon. But yeah, you can get a good taste of what I'm doing there. And if you go to my website, mulele.com, you can read some samples of. Actually, you might be able to read Mind Gator Part 1 for free over there. I don't even remember at this point. But
yeah, I think I checked recently, and it was up there.
Yeah. So you can read it over there, or you can also read, I think, one part, like 25% of Yakai on my website as well. Yeah. How about you guys? Where can they find your greatest works?
Well, for me, it's going to be if you are a Patreon member, every time a new chapter comes out for either my main stories right now, which would be Relic Hunter Riven, and currently The Tale of Duke and Tamara, that can be found on Patreon. But also, as I finish them, I will be posting up on Gumroad as well the newer editions of the comics.
So how would you describe those? I would say they're very, very shonen adventure, like really, really nice worlds, really fun characters. Just like a bunch
Ribbon, yeah, Ribbon would be, but the Tale of Duke and Tamara is more something that was defined by an image that I saw long ago. I can't remember who the artist was, but long ago there was an image on DeviantArt of this boy running through like a pond, a puddle, and underneath it was just the phrase "mindless adventure." And I'm like, I like that.
That's a good line. That's a good line. I feel that goes well with a.
Yeah, that's Duke and Tamara.
Well,
Duke and Tamara is mindless adventure. In my head.
The mindless part can sound a little negative, but it's a good description of the mood. Just like the jump in and.
Yeah, it's something that is easily accessible by a lot of people, I hope. It's fun, but it's not like super heavy, and every story mixes ideas of fairy tales throughout the world that I've heard of or I liked, and creates a new world based on it.
Cool. All right, my stuff is a little sparse and a little weird, I'm afraid.
Hit it
but
up,
I feel like mostly I've been, as a genre, I've been drifting to more of the funny stuff. lately I've been doing a lot of yonkoma or 4-panel little gag strips. Most of the things I do are like either have like a weird angle or a funny angle. Um, the stuff I put online now it's a little dated by now, but it's mostly experimental kind of off the wall. I got one I'm most proud of is probably Kai, which was a really short experimental story about a child that goes to the sea and weird stuff happens. Uh, it,
Simple enough.
people turn into jellyfish. Maybe you should read it. And yeah, a lot of stuff I have online now is like collection of old short stories and everything, and nothing really goes anywhere, and it might be some head scratchers in there, but from the stuff I have online, it should give you an idea of the the general kind of stuff I'm drawing, and I'm hoping to put out more pages and start putting those on Instagram and everything. I've been obviously very focused on um, wooing editors and uh, writing the stuff they like, and like putting stuff out into the public has not been my main focus now. But I hope to get some some Yonkoma gag strips I have now and then put those online, either Twitter or Instagram, or I'll see, but they'll be made easily available. If you want to have some laughs, come read them.
I think it's a good idea. Putting it up somewhere like that is just, especially if you cut it right, and then you had like the little scrollability you can from multiple pages or multiple pictures. It can be really interactive, and people can get behind that kind of thing. So, yeah, I say go for it.
So, as far as this podcast goes, I guess we're doing mostly introductions here, but just kind of the direction of the podcast. What are we here to do? We didn't really discuss it so much, but my intent here was to talk about, what we're working on, how things are going with our various projects, and any news that happens. Like, for example, Oscar talks to his editor again, or I get an agent, or
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
well,
and
to maybe set the stage a little, the three of us have been talking and coming together and kind of like supporting each other and finding our way in the world of comics together for a while, and I guess we just figured that some of the information and the stuff we're figuring out might be helpful to other people as well. So some of it will just be us watching the new Star Wars movie and bitching about that for probably over an hour.
Oh boy.
There might be a recording of one of those still out there in the wild. But also us looking up comic stuff, how to make comics, how to color, how to find agents. A lot of us are still figuring it out, and we're kind of figuring it out together. So you can kind of keep tabs on us and follow our journey through the comic world. Is that a good assessment?
Works. That works for me. That's basically what I wanted to talk about was the stuff with the Star Wars. Though I'd say it's more just whatever inspires us. So one day it might be movies, another day it might be whatever comics, or maybe one of us went to an art show or whatever it is. But just kind of bring that to the table and discuss it as a group. That's kind of what I was thinking it would be about. But
yeah, no, I can totally. see it work like that. And of course it'll settle as we go along. I feel, but I guess the idea, the way I saw it, is like coming back to the name of the podcast, is like we're coming together talking about shit while we should be drawing. Hey, except for Chris, who's always drawing. That man is a beast.
Just weird.
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but maybe the podcast name will change over time. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep it in the same address, so you don't have to change your feed or anything while trying to find new episodes of this podcast as we go. But yeah,
Okay, we do for now. We do have plans to maybe put some stuff on YouTube, like Melody mentioned before, that we can maybe look at stuff in real time and stuff like that, and become a more visually focused show. But that's a bit up in the air. But we'll see how that works out.
yeah. I did have one topic I wanted to ask you guys about comics.
What's that?
It may be something that's not that important to you, but just I'm watching a lot of the stuff that's happening in the States with the shelter in place order and the way it's kind of affected book distribution. Apparently, a lot of comic stores are shutting down, and a lot of Diamond has stopped distributing, which means no new comic books.
It's down just all the way?
No, they shut down completely. Said they are not going to. They're not going to distribute anything new. They're not going to receive anything new, and they also said they're not going to pay their merchants. So basically, Marvel sent them a whole bunch of comics. They sent the comics to the stores. The stores paid them for the comics or didn't pay them for the comics. Doesn't matter. Diamond is not forwarding that money back to Marvel. So for Marvel, it means that they miss out on some money, and that might hurt them, but it won't kill them. But there are other smaller studios or other smaller companies that are going to be hurt. From what I understand, Valiant has said pencils down on all projects, which makes everybody feel that, okay, that's the end of Valiant. But I don't know. Do you guys have any?
Yeah, because the way I understand it is that you either go through Diamond or you don't get mainstream publishing, right? Or
that's right. And Marvel and DC are signed to exclusive contracts with Diamond. But one interesting thing, DC has kind of they've actually said in a letter to everyone, we're looking for a multi-distribution system, a multi, not just going through Diamond anymore, but going through various companies, various outlets to get comics to people from here on. But the next couple of months, of course, with the lockdown, it's going to be maybe not physical, or at least it's not physical currently. Two weird things happened. One, there was no new comics this week.
Yeah.
In a show of solidarity with the comic book shops, apparently a lot of companies just said, okay, we're not putting out anything digitally either.
Okay.
What is that?
Well, if you...
what do you feel about that? Is that a... You understand that sentiment? I'm not sure I immediately get how
the
shutting down digital is...
It's kind of it kind of sounds like it's a show of like respect. Look, we're not going to just focus on one whole media. We respect the idea that print is just as viable as digital is. So we don't want to overstep you. We don't want to like kind of like put something completely over your head. We're going to make sure that when we're printing, we print, and when we do digital, we do digital, so that we all can get through this together.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I take away from that. But I forget which company it was. It might have been DC who said that there are two distinct markets, digital and print, and the print people don't necessarily want digital. But my thinking is that if in a healthy situation, both of those can coexist. But if one goes out, then the other one picks up the slack, and so you have a much larger digital distribution then, or an only digital distribution. That's the only way you can get your comics out.
Well,
I think,
as far as opinions on this go,
yeah,
I really don't get that. I feel like it puts digital like firmly under physical publishing by doing that, because I cannot imagine that if digital goes down for whatever reason, that that physical copies would be like, oh let's stop the presses and have a minute of silence for our digital brethren or something like that. I mean, I get that sentiments are high with a terrible situation going on now, and I get that, of course. It's like there's a lot of people trying to make a quick buck now, and that sucks. And I get that digital doesn't want to be like, oh, let's make the best of a bad situation and get some money here, yuck yuck yuck. But I wouldn't feel like that. Just keeping digital stuff running is actually doing that, because to me, what's going on here is the ones who are getting hurt is the customer. You know, they don't get print, they don't get digital. That screws people over both ways, because everyone is stuck at home, and
right,
they can't
right.
go out and buy comics. But now they can't get them digitally as well. How is
Well,
that a good thing?
the thing of it is that the print books go through stores and comic shops, and those stores and comic shops are hurting. When I was in New York, I went to the Strand bookstore, and it is huge. It is beautiful. Second floor, there's half a wall full of just graphic novels. They don't do floppies, but it when I saw it, I fell in love with it. And to understand that it's been around for 93 years, and that it is very active in the community, supports comic books and comic book artists, it is a part of the community. They, for the first time in their 93-year history, had to lay off staff.
Oh.
So we're looking at a collapse of the system of distribution for, I mean, it doesn't matter what happens to Diamond. If Diamond goes under, then there'll be another one that pops up. They'll make sure of that. But if the bookstores and the comic shops go under, then they have no place to sell it except for Amazon. Amazon already owns Comixology.
Right, and with that, like, that's even, in my opinion, a more difficult platform for the artists alone to put their work up or handle their work. But that's just me. It's rough. In a worse, like, the only kind of like simplistic word that I can kind of say it's rough. I do think that they need to be supporting the bookstores as much as possible, but I don't know. It's all crazy with the virus right now and this whole social distancing thing. It's way too complicated. You're right. Distribution wise, we'll get a new one. That's okay. But I don't know. I hope that they don't go out.
I would have hoped for a more creative solution, where, because I've heard some stuff on the news about stores going under and people trying to prevent it, and there's news of like stores trying to find a way to stay afloat with this whole thing going on.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to put this on YouTube at some point, we can't say the C word apparently, so keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. Well, that's just for monetization.
Which is stupid.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But I think they're trying
But
to
that's another
avoid
issue, I guess. But
disinformation.
yeah, no, I've heard some stores who are like doing a pre-order or like a gift card or like store credit, like those kind of solutions.
Yeah.
And I feel like this would be the ideal moment where you go, you can't buy print anymore. How about you pre-order and you get a digital copy or something like that? That would have been a perfect opportunity to.
Actually, they have suggested that what you do is you'll pre-order your print copy, which will come a couple of months later, but you'll get a digital copy now, just
Yeah,
to kind of keep you
how is
in.
that not the solution instead of that's
Some
it, no one
some
gets to read comic books anymore? That
yeah, I think a lot of print comic book readers are traditionalists and don't like the idea of change. That's what it seems to me more than anything else. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the idea. I'm not sure how it looks in the real world, but I am seeing a lot of people saying, no, this is not good.
also being a little realistic here. If digital comics are not available for sale, people will get their digital stuff elsewhere where they're not for sale. They'll just be more illegal downloads because people are
Well,
sitting at
look,
home with nothing to do. So
so for example, the latest issue of Spider-Man or Batman,
Hmm.
you'll get that when they release it. But if they don't release it, there's no pirating of that because it's not available.
That's true.
That's what it is. And so it's not that the distributor said no digital comics. They'll put it out if it's there. It's that Marvel and DC said no digital comics. So nothing came out this week. I think April 1st was supposed to be comic book day, but there was nothing. And it was supposed to be a show of support for the comic shops, which they have suddenly realized that are their friends. Which brings me to one last point. Marvel looked at the situation and said, okay, you bought these books and then you had to shut down because of government order, which means you can't sell those books. So what we'll do is we'll give you credit for those books on, I guess, your next bunch that you buy from us. But
if you're still around, kind of, I suppose.
Yeah, if you're still around. I mean, a lot of these places are just going under because it's been a pretty thin margin for their business anyway. But DC did something much better. They said, okay,
What DC do?
we'll buy back all of the books that you couldn't sell from this date when the shutdown happened. I think it was like March 17th or something, all the way through to whenever your last shipment was. And we'll offer you credit for the shipping fee, which is like a complete buyback. And the way the system works in a regular bookstore for novels, and I guess graphic novels as well, the publisher will sell to the bookstore will sell the book, and what they don't sell, they can return to the publisher. And the publisher has to eat that cost, or at least a percentage of it. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that doesn't exist in comic books, or at least it didn't up until DC said that. I think there was one other company that might have said they'll do something similar. Maybe it was Dark Horse. I'm not sure.
Dark Horse.
But DC is the one that made the news because they're one of the big two.
Just from what you're telling me, it does seem like DC is coming out on top on a lot of these decisions for.
Yeah, they are, which means they've thrown down the gauntlet, and Marvel has to respond.
But Marvel is Disney these days, right? So they should be able to float that kind of money easier than anyone else.
No,
in theory,
Disney. No, Disney is on the verge of going bankrupt.
Oh, is it because of their service?
No, well, Disney
Plus not doing well, or
Disney Plus at the outset they had said that there's not going to be profit here for 5 years. So we need time to build this thing, but we're going to build a glorious thing. And it is glorious from what I hear. And some of their shows that they've got slated, I want to see. But the theme parks are dead in the water. And they just completed a lot of building for a lot of stuff with Star Wars components of those theme parks. So Disneyland, Disney World, they're closed. They were going to lay off a lot of their staff, but there was pushback. So they said, okay, Bob Iger is going to take a pay cut. He's going to no salary, and the new CEO is going to take like 50% of his salary off and give it to the workers to keep them in place.
I haven't done proper research on this, but I've heard that the whole salary thing is kind of a bit of, it's not as cool as it sounds, because most of these people make amazing money in bonuses, and their actual salary is not like the most interesting part of their bank account.
Because a few days after they announced that, they started saying, okay, we're going to furlough a lot of the workers, basically meaning that you've got a job, you just got no pay. When we can start paying you again, you can come back, which is different from laying someone off, which just means, get out of here. We can't use you. And if you come back, you've got to apply again. So Disney, because of the theme parks, because of the Fox acquisition, because of all of the overextending themselves, they're really hurting. And if they have to start cutting off divisions, Marvel Entertainment is something that they don't want to cut. That's their bread and butter. But Marvel Comics, from what I understand, it's not that much of a moneymaker. In fact, some people say that it's in the red sometimes. So if you're if you're a businessman who does not give a fuck, you either sell it or you just cut it. If you can sell it, you can make a little money. If you cut it, well, but I mean, it depends on what the deal is with the copyright there. I don't know. I mean, who wants to buy a business arm without the copyright? And I don't think DC would want, or Disney would want to give the copyright to their characters.
Fox could buy it, and then they can finally stop being angry about Spider-Man being used all the time.
Well, actually, some people are saying that Apple might buy it, because apparently Apple has the cash on hand to buy it. The cash.
Apple buying Marvel. I don't know.
Apple buying Disney, the entire thing.
So then we'll see like the Apple symbol with Mickey Mouse ears.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound like a good thing either way, really. Though I must say, I will shed no tears for Disney once it finally falls over, because it seems for a while the running joke was like everything will be one big company that's called, Activision, Blizzard, Disney, just all the names mashed together in a Acti Disney or whatever, and that's a scary thought, honestly. But I guess just Disney taking it on the chin by this whole situation is not solving the underlying issues there. But
well, my feeling about this is that, I mean, a lot of people online are saying, okay, it's the death of comics, this distribution thing. And for my own sense of it, I've never really been a mainstream guy. I mean, I've worked with Dark Horse a little bit, and I did a job for DC once. Never worked with Marvel, never worked with Disney. And have never worked on any property that wasn't owned by the writer or the company directly. It wasn't one of those like, hey, I'm working on the Star Wars comic. None of that stuff. So I've never had that level of success. If that stuff were to go away, I think I would actually be okay, because
maybe the rest of us would get some breathing space, because comics being equal superheroes is almost a stigma at this point.
Well, see, the thing is, it's not the genre that bites so hard. I forgot who said it, but someone said recently, and I think it's absolutely right, that the reason why this is so bad is because everything is just recycled. The heroes now have been reformed and reformatted and launched so many times that they're completely out of context from what they were when they started. So the thing is, when these things go, something new will grow in their space.
Yeah,
and that's actually good. Yeah, from the ashes, a new generation of excellent comics will be born. Superheroes or not, doesn't really matter to me. I just want good stories.
I can agree with that. I think it's true. I think it's like they did the same kind of revival with video games at some point. People said a lot with, video games were dead at when the Super Nintendo reached its pinnacle. Then we had the Nintendo 64, and that revolutionized the entire way of how games were played at those times. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the same thing could happen with comics as well. There can be another, like, not renaissance. What would be the right word for it? Like another
golden age.
Like golden age of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd hope for. I mean, I don't really want to see the death of comics or the death of superhero genres, even though I don't read that stuff.
Yeah, the real sad thing here would be that in order for Marvel to step down, that it would have to come at the price of all the local comic shops and all the small publishers dying along with him. If it's not obvious at this point, I'm not a big Marvel fan myself. I've always been more on the Japanese side of comics.
Don't get it twisted. I don't do superheroes either.
I mean, they always intrigued me. I just found them hard to get into. I guess I guess my short history with superhero comics can be mentioned that I was always watching from the sidelines, and I remember that they had the big thing when Captain America died. Well, I'm sure he died like 5 times, but it was like a really big marketing campaign, like Captain America is dead, and it was kind of marketed like a good jump-in point. So I think I bought my only Marvel book, which was like a Wolverine issue, and the pitch was like Wolverine is gonna find out who did it, and because to me these comics there's so few pages in it. I'm used to reading these manga which go on for like 200 pages in one book, so you get this 20-page issue, and Wolverine, I don't remember who it was, but he was chasing this guy, and in the end he's just like punching him. He's like, did you kill Captain America? And the guy's like, no. I was like, oh shit, and that's where it just ends.
Wow, what a cliffhanger!
I was so disappointed. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna get into comics. This was their one chance to hook me, and that did not hook me.
Yeah,
did you kill him? No.
Well, that's kind of the Jack Bauer way of interrogating where are the nuclear weapons at the point of a gun. But yeah, I put down Marvel Comics for similar reasons, just bad story writing. And at this point, it's what, $3.99, $4.99 for 22 pages.
Yeah, something like that, right? Like they've gone up incredibly in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's just not reasonable, and especially when for the same price you get 300-400 pages in Shonen Jump or any of the Japanese ones.
It's been a while since I held one in my hands, but do they still have like all these ads in them? That was one thing I remember too.
Yeah,
like
I think so.
You flip 2 pages and there's like a huge full-page ad that just throws you out of the story.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's still a thing, but
there was this ad I saw in one of them once. It was an ad for a car, and I was like, "Who the fuck are you marketing to?" I mean, this is a Spider-Man comic with the most absurd plot. Why? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna market for a car.
To your dad. Have him buy you this car.
Because I'm quite sure I was able to buy a car with all the money I spent on comic books. Yes, I'm sure.
It was real weird, but yeah, there are still ads in them. As far as I'm concerned, the graphic novel is the only real bargain. As long as you get like at least half the story, if not the entire thing, in one graphic novel. You can't quite do that with Spider-Man. Shit's too long. It's got to end.
Well, I think a lot of them still revolve around that whole villain of the week thing. And with some of the comics' longer stories, a villain of the week style with this epic, like, for example, like, I'm going to find the murderer of Captain America, it doesn't really work together. And so you like the graphic novel where you have 5 chapters or 6 chapters together in one is much more viable. And I think that's something we should have gone towards a long time ago.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the floppy is just a kind of nostalgia medium for people who just can't let go of that old system.
Yeah, I feel like the greatest strength there is what holds them down, because you have all these iconic characters that at this like the main appeal is their design, and it's been around for so long, but at the same time it's like, even though they try to change little things and like, oh, Thor's a woman and Spider-Man's a dog now, but there's some things you can't touch because that would destroy the recognizability, like the core concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt a little dull to me, because you can't change the essence of, let's keep Spider-Man as an example. If you change the essence of Spider-Man, which would be interesting, but he would no longer be Spider-Man, and that's kind of a catch-22 that it would be interesting to me if it was completely new, but if it was completely new, it wouldn't be Spider-Man anymore. So they have to keep it recognizable, and that kind of, I'm sure there's specific books out there that like work really well in the confines of keeping it Spider-Man, but to me, as a reader of comics as a medium in general, I feel like, why would I bother with I'm not married to the concept of having to read a book about Spider-Man. I'll just read another good comic strip, that's I don't need these, but like you say, it's mostly like the nostalgia, or like the safety of like a Batman comic. You're not just reading a weird graphic novel about someone exploring their sexuality. No, you're getting a Batman comic, and there's a certain safety in that, I suppose.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that safety net can get a little boring, I feel.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that pulled me into Japanese comics, is that there was no safety net for the most part. When I'm reading that first volume of Akira, and half the gang dies fighting the clowns, other people get fucked up like royally in that comic, all bets are off. You don't know who's going to survive. You're just like, oh shit, this can't happen in Marvel comics. And I picked it up in '86, so at that time the comics approval code was still a very strong thing, but I'm watching people die on the page. And when Yamagata died in Akira, that was some hard shit. You just don't get that in Marvel comics.
Oh, that is a beautiful panel.
Yeah, well, the whole thing. I mean, fuck, his brain fell out of his skull, but I wouldn't call it beautiful. But I know where you're coming from.
I mean, it was very strong. I mean,
yeah.
We recently went back to Akira for another podcast, and that's one of the scenes that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
But Akira is. Yeah, no, but I was just going to say, you brought up an interesting point, because I would say the same thing, that's what got me into manga as well. But at the same time, after reading manga for like I don't know how many years, like a couple of years. I used to be really big into shonen, but there came a point where I kind of caught on with the safety net that the shonen genre had in itself.
Mm.
Like it seemed like there's no set heroes or everything, but there's definitely a set of rules and repeats that's underneath. And if you consume enough of them, you can really see like the Shonen Jump brand has like the same kind of this is what we do and this is what we don't kind of structure.
Sure, sure, I can see that. But the one thing that I always found critical to my like of Japanese comics, regardless of those things, is that the artist that created the property is the one who finishes it.
Mm.
He may have assistants, he may do more or less on the comic than he did at the beginning. Like I think Gogo 13, the guy only draws the eyes of the main character.
The eyes are the best part.
Apparently only the pupils. He's like dot dot, my work is finished here. And that comic's been running for, I don't know, centuries at this point. But that artist, when he dies, if he hasn't changed the system, when he dies, that's the end of Gogo 13.
There's gonna be some weird eyes for the latest one.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I like the fact that all of these comics end at a certain point, either when the artist ends or when the story is done, whichever comes first. But they end. Superman is now what, 75 years old?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm done. I just can't look at it anymore, and I really don't want it to waste my space. I was happy for Christopher Reeve's Superman in part 1 and part 2. After that, I'm done, even with the film stuff. Make better something else.
It's time for it to kind of, I guess, end in that case.
Yeah, exactly. But it's never ending in the States, and that's why I like the Japanese ones.
Okay, I see where you're coming from, because I felt that way. For example, with which one was it? Was it Rave? Yeah, it was Rave. One of my favorite action adventure mangas was Rave, and they had the first, let's say, 17 to 20 books was their first arc.
Mm.
And this amazing story where, like, finally the characters get together and they defeat this major enemy that was like looming over them, and then the story ended. I'm like, wow, that was really cool. That was a really cool end. And then
Rave is the guy with the fairy tale afterwards, right?
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Mashima Hiro-san. However, after that, I found the next book, and it started continuing a new story with those characters, and it's like, huh, I thought it was over with. I thought it was done, and it continued on, and there was another story arc. Luckily, it was good. It was a good story, but at that time, I felt like, not like it's done. Like you should stop. However, he did have more to tell with the world, and he did have more that he wanted to show, but not everyone has that blessing.
Yeah.
It's definitely like, if you say stuff like Superman has been around for 75 years, it's on a different scale, but I do feel that there are a lot of manga that either outstay their welcome, or because it's a weird system here, because it's all based on like the magazine is king, and with the votes coming in, and because I personally I used to read everything in the tankobon, like the little
the collected volumes.
Not sure how you call those, but yeah, the little books you buy, the collected volumes, and sometimes a series would just like it just ends like in a really weird spot. It's like, wow, that's a weird way to do it. But once you get in on how these books are made, you realize that the actual story is that these are not made in books; these are made in a magazine, and like the votes and the author keeping up with the schedule and everything, they're all factors that really shape the story of the books. And sometimes I think one of the most famous examples, for example, was Shaman King, which worked up all the way to like the big climactic battle, and then they just skipped that part and they're like, oh, that was cool, and then it ended, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And then all the way at the end of the book, there was a little note that said like, yeah, the author almost died, and I think there was a note from the author himself, and it said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something among the lines of, yeah, sorry guys, I fucked up the ending, but I was basically dying. I was working way too hard, and I felt my body wasn't gonna last. So I made the choice to live, and I made a really crappy ending, but at least I'm alive, you know? And I feel like in manga, often it's that kind of story that shapes the book. It's perhaps more shaped by the circumstances and the editors, and sometimes authors run out of stamina, or sometimes like I feel like books are not allowed to end, like stories are not allowed to end because people keep voting for them, and they keep selling magazines, and it's way past its prime. Of course, opinions differ on that, but I personally remember Naruto. I loved it, but at a certain point fell out of love with it, and it just kept going and going. And I was living in Japan when it ended, and one day there was like a big poster in the subway saying like, guys, it's over, Naruto is ending. And it was a big moment, but at the same time it was weird for me, because at the same time it's like such an important like a series that meant so much to me was ending, but at the same time I had already moved on. To me, I had already like let go, and now it was like officially ending. And that bittersweet, or that weird feeling afterwards, they made like the Bolt series about his son or whatever. And it's kind of like, I feel like at that point it kind of creeps close to the whole Superman thing, where it's like, to me, I didn't feel like it ended on its prime. Like they kept going and going, and it turned into something that I'm sure a lot of people loved, but for me it wasn't what I liked about Naruto anymore, because it keeps going, and they keep changing stuff, but at the same time it just turns into something different, and then it ends, and then it ends, but it picks right up in another book. That's where I feel like the water kind of gets murky, and it starts to feel like, to me, like a Superman thing, where it's like, we can't let this, how to call it, like this IP, or this brand, we can't let this brand die, because even if the good story is gone, I mean, slap Naruto on something and it'll sell better than a new title. So
the marketing of the stuff, I do agree, is sometimes a little bit much. But the thing is, Dragon Ball, they had a movie a couple of years ago. Did you guys see it?
Which one? Yes, but which one?
Yeah, I saw.
It was a live action movie.
Oh God, no! Yes, I saw it.
Yeah, I heard it was bad. I heard it was so bad that it convinced. It convinced the publisher that they had to reprint the entire run in a new series just to remind people what it actually is, not this cheap shit that was on the screen for a month. But see, the thing is, they reprinted the original works. They didn't hire a new artist to write new stories. And so, in a sense, if the story is done well by the author, then it is gold. If it is done poorly by the author, then you get things like these stories that you just told, where there's some sort of unsatisfying component to.
Dragon Ball might be a good example there, though, because the author is done with Dragon Ball. It ended around, what's that, the Buu saga. is the official end, but I haven't done my homework here, so I'm sure he was okay with it or anything. But they're still keeping it going even now. Is that still ongoing? Dragon Ball Super or whatever.
Dragon
I don't know
Ball
that.
Super,
And
the manga, yes.
it's not Toriyama doing it anymore. And just I like for me, Dragon Ball is over when Toriyama left it. But living in Japan and just you're constantly faced with Dragon Ball stuff, you know. Even though I'm not following anymore, every time Goku gets a new hair color, it's in convenience everywhere, and it just
Yep.
the only thing after a certain time you're just like, just let it die.
Uh,
Don't keep making Dragon Ball. Don't keep
Actually, that's
inventing the hair colors for him.
that's my whole point. I didn't know that they were doing that with Dragon Ball. For me, Dragon Ball did end when Toriyama Akira left it, and the idea that they're continuing that is completely the opposite of what I meant about Japanese comics having one author. I don't know if Toriyama Akira signed off on that or if they
Yeah, that's why
It's his
I want to say as
protege.
well. I'm not sure.
So
But
if Toriyama Akira signed off on it, that's his business. But what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
for the authors of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, they had no say in it. The companies decided to continue that shit, even though those original authors are long since dead.
That's right.
I mean, that the point of it is, if Toriyama Akira has some control over Dragon Ball and his protege is now writing it, when Toriyama Akira dies, he can essentially say, "Okay, this is what I want to happen with this property." If he has control, if he has no control, then it's up to the company. It may go on like Superman.
I feel like I'm treading on dangerous ground here. I might upset a bunch of people, but I personally I feel from the information I gathered, I feel that Toriyama was basically done with like the grueling sacrifice your body to comics workload that expected of you as a mangaka, and hitting it big with Dragon Ball. He's just like, all right, I'm out, and I'll do character design and whatever, the fun stuff, but not the whole kill yourself for too many hours every week kind of deal. And I think that because he's like, I want to be out of the game. He's in a position where they're like, oh, can we still sell Dragon Ball and give you money though? He would be inclined to be like, yeah, and I'll, because it doesn't feel to me like it's a real like, if he had, I feel like it would be different if he had like enough money if you do not worry about money anymore and be like, just let Dragon Ball, like I want to say that I don't know how it is, but I feel like if he's just making money of Dragon Ball stuff and he doesn't want to do this mangaka thing anymore, then it's going to be hard for him to say from like, oh yeah, don't please leave my work where it was, and I'll guess I'll go get a job as a salaryman or whatever. Which maybe segues this into a whole other discussion for maybe another podcast. But
But
I'm not entirely. I guess I'm saying I'm not entirely sure that like him being okay with it is like, there might be a lot of like the man's got to eat stuff involved there.
Perhaps, but I think he was doing pretty well by the time he left Dragon Ball, unless he fucked up his money situation really badly somehow. But I don't know.
Not to mention, he was also working for other studios and game studios as well, doing concept art and character art as well. Like, if I don't know if anyone actually remembers it, but there was a game that was out called Blue Dragon that sold very well when Xbox 360 was released.
I played it all the way to the final boss, but then I had to grind a little and I gave up. So technically did not finish it, but I like Blue Dragon.
Yeah, I love that, and the fact that it was like, oh, Akira Toriyama. Do you remember that game where he did all the character art for Chrono Trigger? I mean, that game also sold me as well. Like he did a lot of work, and I think those payouts helped him as well.
Sure,
So,
sure.
I'm
But I
I'm
mean,
not
he
sure.
got his. He got his. He's quite famous. He made his money, and maybe he's still making money with the properties that he was a part of. But that's my point. The creators of Superman famously died paupers,
hmm.
and so it on the one hand it's about making your money. On the other hand, it's about creative control. Um, and those things you can see the effects of it in the Japanese system, and that's my only point there. I mean, the love of comics, of this comic or that comic, and personally, I love the story that the guy fucked up the ending because he decided to choose life instead of
Hmm.
comics. And for me,
I hope I'm quoting that right because it's been a while. So
yeah,
I seem to remember that's a yeah.
well, if it's accurate, I mean, for me, in every creative work, there are two stories. The story that the author is trying to make, and then the story of the author. And I'm always trying to read and understand both of them. I think in America, it's more of the author doesn't matter as much as the final product. So, written by committee, drawn by committee. It's a little more impersonal, and I really don't like that. It's why I love indie comics, because you can see the author living on the page. Um, every mistake that gives you insight into what was going on in his life or her life at that moment.
Oh,
I love all of that.
that's
Oh
true.
yeah, especially in manga, I always love like they usually put like little between the chapters. There's the little
Editor's note or like.
the like the little write whatever you want pages. They used to have a lot of those,
Mm.
and this is another this is another case of me trying to remember something from a long time ago. It might not be correct, but I think I remember the Gintama manga, or it might be another one. But
Hmm.
so yeah. Anyway, it was this comedy manga, kind of like Gintama. I think it was Gintama, but and in between chapters, you had these little gags of the author, um, just ripping into his editor, but like to a point where you could just feel the frustration boiling up the page. Where he's like, I one that always stuck with me like for 10 plus years is like, so you're reading the funny manga and the chapter ends, and it's just like a little page where he's like, my fucking editor is a dead monk. Like, anyway, it was like, what's this dead monkey near the road or something? And like, oh yeah, it's my fucking editor or whatever. and, then, and then the
Wow.
story just continues, and like you said, Mulele, the two stories. I always, to me in my mind, I always felt that like the guy had to put up with a lot of shit of his editor to make this story, and they just gave him this one page where they go like, let it all out. Like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna edit this one. Just write whatever you feel like. And that's his one page where he's like, it gets it all out. And oh no, I think it was Gintama because they
Hmm.
have the they have the girl character in there. I forgot her name. I'm not good with character names. Um,
Hmm.
and she's one of my favorite characters because she's like, her personality is basically like an old guy, um, and
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
the other wrote like the editor insisted that there had to be a cute girl in there, but the author in his humor he prefers like this kind of like uh, old guy kind of old fart humor, so he made this girl because he had to, but he still kept like, instead of being like a cute, Genki anime stereotype, she has the old fart humor, which made it hilarious. But I think it's an interesting case how like him being, again, like the two story things, like his editor forcing him to put a girl in,
Mm.
and he's sticking to his guns on his humor style. Was a recipe for a hilarious character. Something that wouldn't have gotten if he had gotten free reign and just made all his characters dudes or whatever.
Mm.
Uh, Yeah, that's where that tangent went. But yeah.
Actually, we should probably start wrapping up because we're like an hour and 18 minutes in. But so any last? Yeah.
Can I say something? Because I want to say I think the topic is good, so I wanted to make two different branching roads for us.
Right.
So two topics. The first topic is creative freedom.
Yeah.
When it comes to comics, and the second one is character archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
I think these 2 points are actually pretty interesting, which stem from what we talked about today. Is something that we can discuss next time.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
It seems
I'm
like
good with it.
a good jumping off point.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. We may get to that podcast date and decide, no, not that. We need something else.
Oh yeah, definitely no promises.
yeah. But anyway,
I tried.
But anyway, we got a couple of topics for next time in case we don't have anything else. But anyway, just real quick, what are you guys working on now or looking forward to in the near future?
I'm working currently on the second chapter of The Tale of Duke and Tamara. I'm also working on revamping the first volume of Relic Hunter Riven so that I can have a sellable volume at any kind of convention at the end of the year, or if knock on wood, we can go to conventions and stuff. I think this year of anything, for comic conventions, if summer is out, winter would be the shooting point. So I want to have a full volume with some extras for people to take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
And I will probably be putting up a Kickstarter in a couple of months for that. So yeah.
Nice. How about you, Oscar?
So I was working on this Yonkoma or 4-panel comic pitch for Korokoro Comics, but as I was mulling over the idea with the editor, it kind of the version because I made different versions of this story. It's like the basic pitch is a school for monsters that goes on at night, and all the shenanigans going on in there. But I kept tweaking the concept a little, and the version I'm working on now is actually a full story manga one, not restricting itself to the 4-panel ones, but like a regular panel layout comedy manga. Not sure, because this is the third version of this concept, I think, by now. So not sure if this is going to be the final one, but this is currently the project I'm working on, trying to get it in some sort of final version. And I hope I'll eventually put out all the old versions and everything and make those available. Because I hope that process might be interesting to see how a project changes before it becomes its final thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. No Kickstarters or anything coming up, but hopefully I'll be consistent in my attempts to revive my social media accounts.
I hope to see something soon.
Well, we'll help you out if necessary.
What's going on with you, Malila?
Well, currently I'm making demos. I'm making demos for 3 comics currently to help me find an agent, an editor, or some other way to publish other than Kickstarter, because my closet is full of Kickstarter books and I want to do something else. And also my girlfriend is like, no more Kickstarters. So for anybody who's asking, where's Mindgator 3? That's kind of where it is right now. If I can get any kind of distribution going, then yeah, you'll see Mindgator 3 and 4 and whatever else I've got. But the one that I'm currently working on for the demo I'm currently working on right now is for a new project called Paradolia, which is about a junior high school kid who sees ghosts. And all of the stuff that goes with that. Kind of like Sixth Sense, but a little darker. And maybe it makes sense a little bit better, or at least I hope. But anyway,
you can find a lot of sneak peeks of that one on Instagram, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Lots of sneak peeks on Instagram, and actually, I'm going to really get into detail of my process and show a lot of behind the scenes stuff of how I'm building the world and building the characters and building the demo itself on Patreon. So if you want to check that out, patreon.com/Mulele Redux, all one word. And I guess that's it for me as well.
Nice.
So yeah, just to wrap it up once more, that's Mulele Redux. I am Big Fat Dog Comics and Sketchfro. You can find Chris under Sketchfro. Look us up, read our comics, and
buy our comics.
Buy our comics.
Please.
Don't just read them. Don't steal them. What are you doing?
I don't know that my comic can be stolen anywhere yet. I'm not that big.
Yeah.
That's the dream. Having your comic stolen is the dream.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, until next time.
Until next time.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Yo.